Hi, the name's Collin. Welcome to COLLCAST episode 12. Sorry for being a day late, or maybe 2 days later, or something like that. I wish I had an excuse, but I don't, so let's get into it. Okay, so first off, dude, I don't know if I should just tell you the good news or if I should explain. Let me explain. I'll explain first. So, I went to film school. In 2014, I started September 3rd. No, it was like August 23rd, something like that. I go to film school with a buddy of mine, Tristan Malu, from Washington. I'm from Oregon. We drove to Michigan to go to film school. The plan was to do 1 year. He did the 1 year, but it's not 1 year, it's 2 years in one. 2 years, like a man. 2 years in one. So it's 24 credit semesters. I've probably talked about this on a podcast already. But if you're new here, this is for you. We wrap the 1 year up. It's 3 semesters. We went year round. So of the summers of 2015 and 16, I was in school. 24 credit semesters for that first, 2 years wrapped into one. 1,500 hours spent on film sets outside of class. So that excludes class time, homework, and all that. We wrap the 1 year up. My buddy Tristan goes back to Washington. I decide to stay. Now, I decided to stay mostly because of the friends and the social circle that I had created there. First of all, there's just something about college friends that is so special. Plus, it was kind of a trade school. We're all there for film. So it's not like you have different minors and majors that you're going to. We're all headed in the same direction, and that's what made it so special for me. I felt like I found my tribe. Where honestly, I feel like a lot of people who attended that school have some form of autism or Asperger's. I don't say that with a negative connotation. I mean that it felt comfortable for me because I too have been diagnosed with something, similar. And I actually do need to go again because I was 16 at the time. Now I'm 27. My brain is fully developed, so I think it would be important to go. I think it would also be helpful for jobs to know if I ever have to get a job again. It would be helpful for them to understand these things because treating every employee like every employee is just not going to work. Some people have learning disabilities. Some people have a real hard time with communication. And communication is a big area that I lack. So, anyways, I took out probably. Oh, yeah, I'm sitting for this episode, by the way. I took out, I think it was like $5,000 per semester that I did there. And that was 8 semesters, including the internship, so really 9. That's probably a lot of money. And to get like $5,000 at the beginning of a semester looked like I'm rich! Little did I know that it needed to last me the whole semester, but more often than not, I'd find myself mid-semester completely broke. I would spend so unnecessarily. So, I exited Compass College of Cinematic Arts with over $100,000 in debt. That includes a payment for the school, that includes the payments that I took out for living. So that right there is 20 plus years of paying that off. Maybe a lifetime, actually. Depending on how assertive and goal-oriented I was in paying that off. And it's even worse if you try to avoid it or defer them. So I was deferring them for a long time because I just didn't have any way to pay them back. I was working kitchen jobs. Wells Fargo would try and go after my parents to see if they could pay it, and it was just kind of a mess there for a little bit. 2017, 2018 was extremely stressful. With ending school, knowing student loans are going to start. I have 2 degrees in film, an associate's and a bachelor's, and I'm salting fries and flipping burgers. My student loans for a while, for the past couple years, have been this mountain that I have turned a blind eye to. I have not really even allowed myself to think about them. During the pandemic, some of them were deferred for about a year, and that was really superb relief to find out. Because I was laid off or without a job for most of the... No, I had a job for quite a bit of the pandemic, but still, student loans were not a priority to me. It was just like student loans were just this backpack that I'm going to be carrying on this journey forever. And I just kind of accepted that fact. But out of nowhere, I get this letter in the mail. Usually, if I get Wells Fargo, I just spit. If I get Wells Fargo mail, I will either open it and shred it immediately or just go right to shredding it. Like, I don't need to see this. I can just find it out online or whatever. So it was like May 28th. They send me this letter. I think I got it early June. But I didn't shred it. I don't know why. I didn't even open it. I just set it aside, this Wells Fargo letter. I was like, whatever. You guys are not important to me. So I'm eating breakfast one morning a week and a half ago or something like that, and the letter is sitting there on the table, and I go, fine, I'll open it. What do you have to tell me? I open it. Let me read it to you. It says, Dear Collin T. Everett, we wanted to let you know that due to the age of your debt, we will no longer attempt to collect from you. Which, due to the age of your debt, made me think collections, but I'm not sure that that's what this is. It doesn't give me any indication that they sent me to collections, which if they did, that would have been, just a massive, okay, so anyways. Therefore, Wells Fargo considers your Wells Fargo Educational Financial Services loan ending in blah, 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 closed, and you are not required to make any additional payments on said loan. What? I almost choked on my breakfast. What you need to know. We will not attempt to collect this debt from you. We will not accept any additional payments on this loan. Any payments we receive after the date of this letter will be returned to you at your address above. Am I showing you my address? Maybe. We have notified the consumer reporting agencies to update the balance amount for this account to 0. That's my balance, is 0. Now, I have student loans from a couple different places, like federal loans, a private loan, and then this. I know, I was so smart. But this, by far, was the biggest one. And it was like 70 grand. That they just forgave. They're just like, meh, we don't need it from you. Now, I did hear that Biden had something to do with this. Which is funny because I feel like it's maybe an attempt to get some followers for the next election. But I don't know, because he's been talking about this forever. Since he was elected, he's been talking about, since before he was elected, student loans. He's been talking about eradicating them or reducing them. And it's kind of absurd. I don't believe it yet. I still feel like there's some repercussions or some sort of collection agency or something, but they don't indicate that. So they said it's been reduced to 0. I want to believe them. Seriously, that is one of the most exciting things that I have ever encountered is my student loans. The years that I would have been paying were reduced from 20 plus to maybe 5. Like, what? I don't even... I'm framing that. But, yeah, anyways, I had to share that absolute excitement because, it's exciting. So, and since school, I have really regretted how I spent the money, and I've really been hard on myself. There's a fly in my room. And now this news just alleviates me from despising Collin in his early 20s and how ignorant that dude was. I don't know if it can be reversed at some point. I don't know. I really hope not. But anyways, that is that bit of news. So on to the next topic. I wanted to talk about Chris Farley. And for those of you that don't know, Chris Farley was a comedian. He was doing improv at Second City in Chicago and got recruited to be on SNL, Saturday Night Live. I think it would have been late 80s, and then early 90s, he was fired from SNL. And I'm not sure if he was fired before Tommy Boy and some of his bigger movies, because those movies are like SNL productions. So, I don't know. Maybe they fired him and hired him for a couple movies. I don't know. I don't remember. But Chris Farley is the comedian that I have the most resemblance to, and I love that. And I actually think that losing weight would remove my resemblance to him, which is kind of a bummer. And it's not that I even find him always laugh out loud funny, mostly because I've seen just about every bit of footage that exists of him multiple times over. But I love Chris Farley for the reasons he did comedy, as well as the darkness that he had inside of him. I have total compassion for his struggle with his darkness. For example, he went to rehab 17 times. I think Lorne Michaels at Saturday Night Live, they sent him to rehab 17 times. I mean, 17, that is just outrageous. Like, he is clearly not going to be getting a handle on his drug addiction or alcohol addiction if it's 17 times. And I feel bad for his friends at SNL who watched his demise, because what could they have done? Seriously, yeah. Like, I guess I resented them for a little bit. Adam Sandler, David Spade, Rob Schneider. But what could they have done? They can't bound him. They can't trap him into a drugless room. I mean, Chris Farley is one of the saddest cases I've ever heard. And his reasons for doing comedy was out of total insecurity. I'm going to make you laugh so you don't make fun of me. I'm going to make fun of myself first so you don't. And he really didn't find himself funny. That's the kicker for me. Is that he would always want to be just like John Belushi. He wanted to be just like him. And sadly, he did die at the same age as John Belushi, who was on SNL a couple decades before him. And, I mean, John Belushi was Chris Farley's Jesus. And Chris Farley, unfortunately, followed his route of life to a T. There's a book, The Chris Farley Show, written by his brothers, as well as anybody who knew him at SNL. The whole book it's an incredible book. I still have it. The whole book is just stories and paragraphs about Chris. And it's such a beautiful book. You got Bob Odenkirk in there, Spade, Sandler, Schneider, and that one other person, you know. But their detailing of his life, his personal life, is just tragic. He was sober, totally sober for Tommy Boy, which I love him for. I love that he was sober for Tommy Boy. He had to be contractually. So, at the end of Chris Farley's life, he was offered a role to play Fatty Arbuckle. If you don't know who that is, Fatty Arbuckle started back in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. Maybe not the 40s, I don't know. No, I think he was. I think he was still trying to come back from what happened. There was a woman who accused him of sexual assault, but it was a lie. Even after it came out that it was a lie, his career was absolutely ruined. Fatty Arbuckle was kind of like the founding father of physical comedy. He brought up Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. Like, he was the guy doing physical comedy in the silent film era before those two. And his career was absolutely demolished by this one accusation that wasn't even true. So, Chris Farley was offered a role to play Fatty Arbuckle in the story of his life. But there was a requirement that he had to be sober for 2 years before he got to play that role. Okay, I do not agree with that whatsoever. Be sober for 2 years before you... No, just make him be sober for the movie, just like Tommy Boy. Just make him be sober for that movie. That's it. That's all they needed to do. And because of how badly Chris Farley wanted to play Fatty Arbuckle, he was devastated by the 2 years of sobriety that he would have to have. Understandably, I can imagine that a drug addict looking at 2 years of sobriety is a mountain. So after Chris Farley was offered that, instead of getting sober for those 2 years, what ended up happening was Chris Farley went on a 3-day bender where he didn't sleep. He went to bars, strip clubs. He had parties at his place, and he didn't sleep at all. He had so many different drugs in his system that eventually, at the end of the 3-day bender, he tried, this is something that I heard, he tried snorting his name in cocaine. But it was, I think, actually an 8-ball, which is more than cocaine. That's like several drugs mixed in. He was with a hooker, a lady of the night, and his body started shutting down as he was alive. He collapsed, and his last words were, "Please don't leave me," to the woman. And she left. She left him. As he was dying, he collapsed and he was, pleading with her, and she left. Needless to say, I absolutely despise that woman. If she had acted, she could have saved his life. She could have. If the police had got there on time, pumped out his stomach, anything could have saved his life. There are even images online of his death, of the scene where he's foaming at the mouth, and it's incredibly tragic. 33 years old. Who dies at 33, dude? I think he would be mid-50s right now, kind of like Sandler and Spade. And I can't even imagine Chris Farley in his 50s, still making movies and making us laugh. I can't even picture it. But I absolutely love Chris Farley for so much more than just his comedy. I think mostly what I feel for Farley is absolute compassion for his struggle. He details in his book, The Chris Farley Show, there's a quote of his that says, the first time you try heroin, it captures your soul. It takes your soul hostage, or something like that. And I believe him. I believe that the first time you try heroin, I've never, ever done it, never planned on it, but you are not in control of the addiction at that point. And that is so terrifying. But he was one of the most incredible acrobats I've ever seen in my life. And he was 300 pounds. The dude was so athletic. Yeah, I love Chris Farley, dude. And there's never going to be anybody else like him. People compare me to him all the time, but I will never live up to what Chris Farley was. But yeah, anyways, I just had to share my thoughts about Chris Farley to you guys. As you guys know, I am such a fan of physical comedy. And I love that it's not just restricted to fat guys either. Because, look at Jim Carrey, Chevy Chase, Dick Van Dyke. Just absolute masters at physical comedy. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, obviously. Chris Farley, Kevin James, even Jack Black. But physical facial comedy is just... it resonates so deeply with me. And that's not all the comedy that I like to absorb. I also love British comedy that's very dry. But even like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, there's so much physical comedy that occurs in those cartoons. Mel Blanc, who was the powerhouse behind Looney Tunes, he would say to his creators, his artists, do not draw the same face twice. Every face, every expression needs to be different. And I love that so much. A lot of my humor comes from Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, those cartoons. Disney, early Disney stuff. And that is definitely a lot of the comedy that I try to produce is physical. Comedy hurts is my motto. That's been my motto for a long time. Ever since I started my first YouTube channel, which is the one that I have now. But I used to put comedy hurts with a logo at the beginning of my videos. And to me, that's actually a relatively deep saying. Like comedy hurts, like physical comedy hurts. I've definitely hurt myself doing physical comedy. But also, what that means is comedy hurts. To choose a life of comedy is painful for the comedian. Because there's a whole world behind the scenes that you have to keep to yourself. It's not comedy. Chris Farley's drug addiction wasn't funny, and he would have never let the public know about that. I'm sure they kept it under wraps. And some of the best physical comedy stunts that I've ever done have not been captured on film, which is so unfortunate. But there was one time that I was performing stand-up comedy, and I consciously thought before I went up there, I'm going to grab that bar stool, put it in front of the mic, sit on it, start telling a joke, and then at some point I'll just fall off of it. So I get up there, get on the stool, start telling my joke. In the middle of the joke, I just lean back and fall off of it. I landed on my shoulder blade, and I hear this brick right on my shoulder blade. And I pop up, and I keep telling the joke, because that's the joke to me, is not that I fell, but it's the fact that I get up and keep telling the joke like nothing happened. But I was in such excruciating pain, I just bit the crap out of my lip, which that hurt more, actually, now. Such pain. And I just... I had to pretend like nothing happened. I just wish that would have been captured on film. But yeah, you guys know. You know, if you're here watching my stuff, you've seen me do physical comedy before. So, kind of switching subjects a little bit. There's this one time that I was traveling, and it makes me cringe so much to think about what I put these people through. First off, never travel in sweatpants. Planes, trains, just don't do it. I made the incredible mistake of traveling in sweatpants because I thought it would be comfortable. So I think I had taken 2 planes, and now I'm getting onto a train that's about 3 or 4 hours of a, ride. And then I had to get in a car and drive like 45 minutes. My buddy was picking me up. So the 2 planes, I knew that I had been traveling for over half a day and that I had gotten warm and sweaty in these sweatpants, but this time I was getting on a train. I sit next to this pretty cute girl, actually, and I just go to sleep. I slept most of the train ride. I think I woke up within the last half hour of the ride. I wake up and I can tell I am so sweaty. And in my peripheral, I notice the girl next to me. So, like, I'm sitting right here, and I'm right here. Well, what? She's right here where I am, and I'm right there where she... No. Anyways, she is doing this with her shirt. Like, completely covering her nose, and she keeps readjusting it. Like... And I see that in my peripheral, and I go, oh, I think I probably stink. I think I really stink right now. She has her full back turned to me. She is like covering her nose. She is trying so hard to escape the stench. And we end the ride. We all stand up. I turn around and I get death glares from people. Like, there's this one 15-year-old kid who was just staring me down. He was so mad. I just remember their faces staring me down, and I was like, oh man, I think I probably stunk up this whole cab, dude. Which I couldn't escape it. How could I have? I just didn't know sweatpants would trap so much heat and cause me to sweat. I hadn't changed my clothes. That was horrible. Luckily, I think this was from the Divine. My buddy who came and picked me up had one of the worst stuffy noses. He had such a cold that he couldn't even... he was talking like this, and he couldn't even smell anything. I was like, thank you, Lord! Because that would have been incredibly embarrassing. I get to my buddy's house, who I was living with at the time. It's him, his girlfriend, and his brother. And I walk up, I hug Kiowa, and I can tell immediately he smells everything. Like, he's using his shirt to, like, do this, and he's like, like, wafting the smell. And I went and changed immediately, but still that whole story just sticks out in my mind with everything I put them through. Traveling is not fun, dude. I don't enjoy traveling. I find it incredibly uncomfortable. I just don't like being out of control. I don't have any control over the situation. But, yeah, anyways, I don't know. That's a small little story. I just needed to get off my boobies. I guess I'll end this podcast with talking about Oklahoma. If you guys don't know the play Oklahoma, like Hugh Jackman, before he was Wolverine, he toured as the main character in the play Oklahoma. So this was 2010. I was 16, I think. And here in Salem, Oregon, there's a Skit Theater, which is Skit is like a acronym, SKIT. Everything stands for something. I remember the audition was beautiful. I made everybody laugh. It was so funny. And I had taken classes, and so the director of the play was familiar with me, and she came up to me after the audition, and she goes, "I love that everybody got to see how funny you are." And I was like, yeah, me too. So she cast me as this character called Ali Hakim, or Ali Hakim, as they say in the play with the accent from Oklahoma. So I'm playing an Arabic guy. Oh, and this was the hat I used. This was the hat that I used during the play for Ali Hakim. And I wouldn't talk like this. I didn't really know like what accent to use or whatever, so it was sort of Indian, sort of Arabic. Allahu Akbar! Okay, that's inappropriate. So I was cast in this play, dude, with a bunch of other high schoolers who were a little bit older, a little bit younger than me. And I can honestly attribute those 3 or 4 months to the happiest months of my life. I sobbed when the play was done. When we were doing our final bows and the director came on and we gave her flowers. I had to walk off stage. I was bawling. I don't do well with things that I love ending, like summer camp. When summer camp ends, I fall into such a summer camp, like post-summer camp depression. And this was exactly that. I hated that it was over because I got so much attention. My attention-seeking quota was filled to the brim for those months. I was one of the main characters. I had a couple songs, and I did a lot of improvising, so I would deviate from the script. And I would do that purposefully just to make other cast members laugh on stage, which they were not supposed to. But I remember being able to do that because I had the script memorized perfectly. The director came up to me one time. She goes, I don't remember why she asked me, but she goes, "What page do you say this line on?" And I go, 72. And she looks and she goes, "Okay, what page do you say this other line on?" And I go, "Page 43. And she turns to it and she goes, "You're sick." Okay, that just fell. But I knew the script inside and out. I knew everybody's lines, dude. So I was able to just do this in and out of improv, going back to the script and making people laugh. After one of the performances, the director came up to me and said, "Okay, stop improvising. You have reached your limit. You've done enough improvising. You have to stick to the script." It's like, okay, if you say so. And the friends that I made are still my friends today. I just remember making them laugh, even on stage, and that was the biggest achievement. But I had to tell you guys about Oklahoma because, a lot of people have their high school days, their high school sports days and stuff, but mine was this play. This play was just such a beautiful time for me. There is a video of one of my songs that you can find on my YouTube channel. I did a reaction video to it. But I have the red hat, the whole dress up, and I'm singing this song. It's a scandal. It's an outrage. But, yeah, that was pretty much the podcast that I had written out to share with you guys. And now I really have to go poop, so I'm probably going to end this, but sorry for being late again. I will try not to do that anymore. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys next Monday. Peace.